Hi there, and welcome back to the 4C's. My name is Rob Miyashiro, and I'm the Executive Director at LSCO. So this week, I'm going to cook for you. It's called Japanese Church Chow Mein. And why is it called Japanese Church Chow Mein? Well, if you ever had chow mein from the chow mein suppers at either the Buddhist temple or the Japanese United Church on the north side of Lethbridge, they make their chow mein a certain way. And I'm going to tell you about the ingredients. What makes a difference from maybe the chow mein you might get in a like a Chinese takeout restaurant? There is a different way of cooking it. So let me tell you what we have. So first of all, we have some kind of meat, whether that's pork, chicken, or beef, or seafood, whatever you want. Has to be cut thin, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So today we're using beef, and I'm using sirloin steak, because you don't need a very big piece, about 250 grams again, because it's not about the meat. The meat's just adding flavor to the dish. The second thing we have are a number of vegetables that we're going to use today. I'm using a whole onion because I like onion, especially in chow mein. So I'm using onion. I'm using a couple stalks of celery that's cut a certain way, and I'm going to show you that as well. We have salt and pepper. Oh, sorry, we have bean sprouts. So a pack of bean sprouts I like to use my old wok. About a 340 gram pack of bean sprouts. If you have the smaller pack, you might want to get two. Back in the day, we used to be able to scoop up as many bean sprouts as we want and stick them in the bag, but that was probably less hygienic than it should have been. So in addition to the bean sprouts, then we have some noodles. In the previous days, I guess, the chow mein noodles that were used were actually made in-house at the churches. In fact, the Koldil Buddhist temple used to make they were fried noodles that were used in a lot of the chow mein dinners that you saw were these fried noodles that they used to make, but people don't make them anymore. They're time consuming, and it's too bad because they're the most delicious thing ever. When we were kids, we used to eat the chow mein noodles by the handful. So right now I'm using steam fried noodles. You can use the store brand, you can use 4K. I like steam fried noodles because I don't fully make them soft. They've got a little bit of crunch to them. And then a little bit of salt and pepper, and a little bit of cooking oil for the wok, and there you go. So from the time you start cutting everything up to the time you have a finished dish on your hands, you're probably looking at, I don't know, 40 minutes maybe. So it's really quick to make, and it's kind of fun too, and it comes together really quite nicely. So as always, what you do, you leave the meat to cut up for last because you don't want to contaminate your board, unless you want to use several different boards. I've pre-washed my bean sprouts, so they're nice and clean already. So the first thing I'm going to cut up is an onion. The interesting story, I have this really thin cleaver. We got it in some cheap knife set years ago, but what I like about it, it's really sharp, and it's really, as you can see, it's really thin. Because what we want to do with the onions is we want to make sure that the onions are really thin, because you definitely don't want to have big chunks of uncooked onion, right? So all you do is you quarter an onion, you get the sharpest, thinnest blade knife you have. You could use one of these as well, and these work just fine. But what I like about this knife, this cheap old cleaver knife, it's sharp, and it does these. I'll show you how thin they get. So you just pretty much shave the onion. So what you're coming up with is really thin onion that looks like this, and looks like that. So that's how thin that onion is. All right, so nice and thin. I don't want to cut my fingers off, and trying to grip with these gloves is something else, which of course I didn't think of either. And we just cut it down. We don't want to cut our fingers. And get rid of that chunk. Go on to the next one. So this is part of what I used to make for my kids all the time, and I still do, one of the go-to meals. My mother kind of showed us how to cook this, so my sisters and I all have our own, a little bit of a variation. But you also want to make sure that everything's fresh and you're not preparing too much of this stuff ahead of time. So one of the things that that my kids liked about this is because they don't make it themselves anymore. So when they live on the West Coast, my older kids, so when I go to visit them and my grandkids, we always make this and teriyaki chicken and stuffed tofu. This is probably why on cooking shows they don't use gloves while they're chopping things, but I'm not smart enough to realize that. Okay, there's lots of onion, because like I said, I like lots of onion in my chow mein. All right. So anyway, so when I go visit my kids, we often have this, and then they want me to make it because they don't make it themselves. But what's really interesting is two of my nieces developed a cookbook for my mom about all the stuff that my sisters and myself and my nieces and nephews like my mom to cook for us. And of course, so I put this in the cookbook as something that I like to make all the time because my kids really enjoy it. So now we have celery. So I've just cut some celery up. What you want to do is cut the celery. Sorry, turn this down a bit. What you want to do is cut the celery into about 1.5 inch, 2-inch pieces, and I'll just kind of. I don't think this is right, but I'll try to make them uniform. Because again, I like a bit of crunch in the celery, but you don't want it completely raw. So what you want with the celery is you're not cutting it like you might see regularly. You're not cutting it across like this. You're not cutting it across this way. If you can see this, you're not cutting this way. What you're doing is cutting it lengthwise, but you're julienning it. So you're really thin pieces of celery. And again, I'm telling you what, I'm taking this off. Thank you. And again, I'm using that same old cheap old knife. But now you can see how thin these pieces of celery are and how quickly they're going to cook. Let me just wipe my hand off really quickly. It's a little bit sweaty from having that glove on it. I don't want to give Trevor a sweaty-handed celery. And again, nice and thin. And take your time. You don't have to do it as fast as I do it, because I'd hate for you to cut your finger off and then, phone me up and tell me it's my fault you cut your finger off. All right. So getting back to the cookbook, it's really kind of a really nice gift from my mom. But of course, even with the cookbook, when I go to visit my kids, they're going to want me to cook it anyway. So anyway, so here we go with the celery. Nice and thin, as I said. But again, I like to leave the celery with a little more snap to it. Just adds a bit more texture. I have to be careful about this because I can always hear one of my sisters kept saying when I used to make chow mein, I made it too chunky. So you know those things you hear in the back of your head. It's like, hey, don't make your celery too chunky. So I'm not. All right, just a couple more pieces left. get this in here. Then I'll cut up the meat. There we go. There's your nice julienne celery. This one's a bit thick. And we're just about there. So now with the meat, so what's really interesting, because of the taste of the meat and the celery and the onion, all I use is salt and pepper to season all this. When they get the meat, you like to make little small pieces of meat, so I'll just show you really quickly. So I'm going to show you, I've got a piece that I left whole, but you want small pieces because, again, you want the meat to cook quickly, and then you can get the dish together more quickly, right? So I'm just going to show you. So what you always want to do is cut the meat so that you're against the grain, or across the grain, not against the grain, so that when you cut it, you have a shorter grain of the meat, and it comes out way more tender than if it's all stringy. So again, here's the nice and thin. And again, this knife works really well with this as well. I could have used my regular knife too, which I probably should have. And this is how simple this dish is. It comes out really nice and it looks nice, but very, very simple and easy to put together. All right, a couple more pieces. There you go. And one more. And like I said, I'm using sirloin with this, and it works out because sirloin is nice and tender. It's not too expensive. It's not too fatty, and people are conscious about fat all the time. So now we have our. Just show you our celery. We have our celery and onion ready to go into the wok. We have our meat already chopped up. So really, the next thing to do is warm up the wok. And this induction burner really warms up quickly, so I'm gonna have to watch out what I'm doing. So if you see a lot of smoke and I run out of here, well, that's the end of the video. All right, here we go. Let's turn our heat up fairly high. I'm gonna put the oil in right now because I don't want to touch the pan with my hand. That much oil. I'm gonna wipe my hand off because I touched meat. Because I'm not touching any other food with my left hand, I'm just using the handle of this. So this wok is an interesting story too. I've had this wok for almost 40 years, and it's old school steel, not stainless steel. It's an old school steel wok. It is just about worn through at the bottom. Because I've used it for so long, and I've been taking care of it. Same time I got this old school wok spatula. As you can see, the handle broke off years ago, but it's just so useful that I've kept it. So it looks like the wok's just about heated up, and this is how simple this is to throw this together. If you don't have a wok and you want to use a frying pan, that's fine. That's fine as well. A wok obviously works better because you can move it around differently. You get the meat in, stir it around to coat the meat with the oil so it doesn't stick. That's how simple that is. To start, you get a little salt and pepper. Of course, not too much. I like salt, but a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. And we'll just let this go. And I don't know much about this burner, so we'll just let it go for a minute. It heats up very quickly. All right. So after after the meat cooks for a little bit, I'm going to turn it up just slightly. And as it's browning really quickly, then I'll throw in the onions next, and we'll season those a little bit. We'll get the onions so that they're just getting soft, not quite like totally rendered down. Then we'll throw the celery in. We'll let that soften up a bit. Then the next stage is we put in the bean sprouts. And the bean sprouts I like a bit crunchy. I don't like bean sprouts that are kind of soggy. One thing by coating the meat first that you might find as it's cooking, because if you don't have your heat like searing hot, you get this nice, I don't know if you can see that, you get this nice kind of a beefy sauce at the bottom from the moisture coming out of the meat. And so when the meat's just still a touch pink, because we're going to keep cooking it, then we come over, we get our onions, we toss the onions in. Make sure we get as many as possible. And then really give it a little bit of hit of salt, just a little bit. Give this a little bit of pepper. And then we start mixing it up with the beef. And then you can break up some of the pieces of onion that are stuck together. I turned it up just a touch. As you can see, it cooks very quickly in this wok, and this induction burner works really well for it as well. So, it's funny the things you remember growing up, or even when you're adults, about cooking. One of my sisters is trained as a chef, and she used to give myself and her husband hell all the time for fooling around with stuff on the stove, like, grabbing your thing and touching it. She just said, let it cook. And so in a wok, you do have to move stuff around, but you'll see later in another dish that I have that I put it together and just let it sit on the stove with and didn't touch it, didn't even open the lid. So I think my sister would be happy about that. All right, the onions are just about soft. About a minute more. So normally we'd be using this beautiful kitchen at McKillop for the 4C's program, as some of you may know, where we bring people together to cook and to develop relationships. But because of COVID, you're stuck with Trevor Potter and myself. So hopefully you can learn something from this cooking, or maybe learn how not to do some things. The onions are getting soft. We'll throw the celery in. And again, a little bit, just a small hit of that salt and pepper, just a little bit. As we add the layers of food into the wok, we just add a little bit of seasoning. That way you're not as much at risk of over seasoning things, especially with salt, as some of you know. So as it's just getting incorporated in, you can see we're just moving things around, getting the heat on them. And we don't have to put a lid on it because all the heat's coming from the bottom up. I'll turn it up just a touch. One thing about this, obviously you can't tell at home, but it smells really nice. You get the nice beefy smell and onion and celery cooking. All right, we're just about there. The onions are just becoming translucent right now, and there's still a little bit of bite to the celery, which I like. I just want to make sure the onions are all cooked, because you don't want to bite into a raw onion. So apparently I didn't cut all of them as thin as I should have. Can pick some of those out. Get this temperature up, maybe will help. All right. So the next thing we're going to add is the bean sprouts, and like I said, I don't want the bean sprouts to cook too much, but I have the heat on high still. So the celery, of course, the celery and the onion will continue to cook. We'll get the bean sprouts in now. We're starting to get a whole wok full, and again, just a slight hit of salt and pepper, and they have a slight flavor of their own. I believe the Japanese word for flavor is aji. If you don't have enough aji, that means your dish is tasteless. All right, so we'll just let this cook for a little bit. Because like I said, I don't want those to cook too much. So once those start to cook some more. So we have our steam fried noodles, and I've used about half a bag for this wok. All right, so those are still pretty cooked, or they're sorry, getting cooked. I need to taste a piece of celery to see if there's enough flavor. I think I can use this hit more pepper. I think it's salty enough. Give that a little toss. And surprisingly, I'm a lot neater in the McKillop kitchen than I am at home, because usually I'd have stuff flying all over the place. It must be a subconscious thing. So now we put in the steam fried noodles. As you can see, their wok is pretty full. So I'm going to just turn it down now, because what we don't want to do is burn. We don't want to burn. We just keep it warm, and we want to incorporate the steam fried noodles into the dish. But we want to keep the wok warm while we're doing this. So any moisture that would have come out of the vegetables and the meat at this point are going to be absorbed by the noodles. And as I said earlier, what I like is the noodles to have a bit of a crunch to it. So really, when you're doing this at home, if it's still too crunchy for you, just throw a little bit of water in, maybe a couple tablespoons at a time while you're stirring this. But as you can see, as I mix this up, the noodles are getting a bit softer, and this dish is coming together. And we're spoke too soon. And there we go. Pretty healthy, pretty nutritious, and pretty easy way to make Japanese Church Chow Mein. And you can do this for your friends and family, and they'll go, wow, that looks pretty good. And it's, like I said, and you saw really how easy it is to pull off. So we're just gonna let this stay warm while we're pulling this together. And now we're done. So you can serve it right out of the wok if you want. You can put it in a nice serving dish. You can plate it up. But that is for you, and this is what it looks like. This is Japanese Church Chow Mein. All right, now that everything's cooked, we're going to plate it up so Trevor can have a taste. So first of all, I have a fresh pot of white rice. I usually use Calrose rice because that's what I grow up eating, and we just do the stuff that we grew up. We're going to put that nicely in the middle of our plate. Going to add some sesame seeds just to spruce it up a little bit. we'll get some of our chow mein or Japanese Church Chow Mein. We're going to put it up nicely around the rice. We're going to get our stuffed tofu. So you remember with the stuffed tofu, we had it upside down, so now we turn it over so you can see now the nice brown, the brown color that the tofu made. We'll put 3 of these on for Trevor. He looks hungry. I'm going to put lots of sauce in here because you might want to mix it in with your rice. And so now I like to do is, since Trevor's so special, so the plate looks quite nice now. But what we're going to do, let's put a little bit of a green onion flower on top. Let's put some green onion garnish on the stuffed tofu. We'll get a little bit of finely chopped orange and red pepper. Make the dish look a little bit more festive. And there we have it. Japanese Church Chow Mein with stuffed tofu and white rice. So as you can see, that it really wasn't that difficult to put together. I believe is a relatively healthy meal, flavorful, looks nice. And so we get, at the end of the day, we get this with our stuffed tofu, some white rice, and our Japanese Church Chow Mein with a little bit of garnish for flourish. So I'm going to present this to Trevor now, and hopefully he likes it. And if he doesn't, well, I guess I'll have to eat all the leftovers myself.
This is amazing.
Here you go, Trevor.
Oh my good, the smell. I mean, oh, I'm salivating. I mean, this. Where can you get this in Lethbridge?
Yeah, my house, my mom's house, my mom's house.
I don't know where to start here.
My aunt.
I mean, I sure miss us. This COVID has really been it's been a bummer.
It has.
Oh, this is the tofu. I mean, look at that, how it's cooked.
With the oyster flavored sauce.
Yes.
And, but the sausage meat's a bit salty. It is.
It is a little salty, but it's delicious.
Oh,
Let's try this chow mein now.
Okay.
Oh, I needed some meat here. I grew up on a farm, although I don't. Oh, this looks fabulous. I mean, that is spectacular. Wow.
I'm glad you like it.
And you can get all these ingredients in Lethbridge.
So really, interestingly enough, during COVID, obviously you don't want to shop too much in large stores, and because of the work that I do at LSCO, I started going more to London Road Market. Mm-hmm. And really, if I want to plug them, that's okay, because they're local, they're a neighborhood store, and they had everything.
And they deliver for $10.
They deliver, right?
$10 to your door.
Good thing for seniors. They dress their own meat. Mm-hmm. They made the sausage, so I can blame Dave for making the sausage too salty.
Yeah,
I'll have to tell him that next time. But everything you see here, I got there. Mm-hmm. Except the rice. I think I got the rice somewhere else. But anyway, everything else I got there. So, all the ingredients for everything here is available at your local grocery, whatever grocery store that you shop at. All the stuff should be there.
Now, when we get back after COVID, our people at the 4C's program,
they can make this.
They need to make this.
Well, they could make this because it's so easy. As you can see, the only seasonings I used were oyster flavored sauce and salt and pepper.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that we added to it. A little bit of garlic in the meat, and a little bit of green onion. That's pretty much it. So, we could do that, right? We could come in and do a guest spot for one day.
Mm. Wow. Can I move in with you?
If you like dogs and cats. You have to like dogs and cats. So just one thing about the 4C's, it's such a great program, and something that we still talk about missing, and it was such a great partnership. It is such a
Yes.
good partnership for our organizations to work together, and it was so helpful for seniors. Now look how many of them actually develop positive relationships,
Yes.
and are friends to this day.
That's right. And don't have to cook hot dogs every day at home to eat.
The one gentleman that ate hot dogs all the time. He
Yeah.
learned how to use. He learned how to use just a regular skillet.
That's
and,
right.
And a pot, and could make nutritious meals.
And this is nutritious. It's healthy. It's easy.
It's easy, yeah.
I mean, it smells amazing. And wow, thank you.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to reciprocating when I get to eat your great food.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
It'll be great.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And again, I'm grateful for the partnership that we've developed over the last few years.
And we are grateful too. It really serves the community, we are here to serve the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.